I mean, the legacy that we leaving them is kind of like sad. It's like filled up with like diamonds and Rolls Royces and Rolexes and whatever. But, you know, we're not really talking about any, you know, internal, you know, things that we need to discuss, you know.
October 14th, 2025. The music world stopped breathing. A short, cold message flooded social media. DAngelo neo-soul legend has died at 51. No scandal, no warning, just a silent death that left everyone stunned. Amid a sea of fake news and speculation, one trembling, painfully honest voice broke through Imani Archer, his daughter. Only a few lines, but they froze the world. And from those lines, a single question began to echo everywhere. What really happened in the last 24 hours of DAngelo's life? Why did a man planning a comeback suddenly vanish? How did the savior of soul spend his final hours? For the first time through the tearful words of DAngelo's own daughter, the world would finally hear the truth. Before the world knew the name DAngelo, he was Michael Eugene Archer, born February 11, 1974 in Richmond, Virginia, a southern city where music faith and the struggle of Black life beat in the same rhythm. His father, Reverend Luther Archer Sr., preached in a small Pentecostal church. His mother Marian was the lead singer in the choir. The sounds of prayer, the hum of the organ, and the rise and fall of gospel harmonies filled the air. DAngelo breathed since he could walk. The Archers lived in a small, worn-down house in South Richmond, a neighborhood of Black working-class families, factory workers, street sweepers, bus drivers. In Richmond back then, church music was the only place where Black people could truly hear themselves. People say that when Michael was only 3, he sat before the old piano. In the church, quietly placed his hands on the keys and played back perfectly the melody his mother had just sung. No sheet music, no teacher, only instinct and faith. Music came to him like a sacred language, his way of speaking to God. By the 1980s, as DAngelo grew up, America entered the Reagan era, the age of economic freedom. With a hidden price, poor Black families became even poorer. Neighborhoods like the Archers were forgotten. Schools were underfunded. Drugs flooded the streets. Young Black men disappeared into prison or died young. DAngelo saw it every day. Friends arrested, some never coming back. To survive, he turned inward, hiding in the church and in music. Growing up between the light of the church and the darkness of the streets, DAngelo learned to listen to the soul within every note. By day, he sang in the choir. By night, he wandered through Richmond's rough neighborhoods, hearing raw rap beats blasting from car speakers, feeling hip-hop and funk pulsing in his blood. In 1991, at just 17, he stood on stage at the Apollo Theater in Harlem, the same place where James Brown and Aretha Franklin once made history, and won amateur night multiple times. His voice, half prayer, half confession, brought the crowd to its feet. That night, DAngelo understood he wasn't just singing, he was chosen. His destiny was music. Leaving Richmond, he carried a notebook of songs, a few demo tapes, and a burning belief that music wasn't meant to be heard. It was meant to be felt. The peak. When the soul of Black America spoke through brown sugar and voodoo. By the mid-1990s, when America was drowning in glossy R&B love songs mass-produced like products on a factory line, a young man stepped out of the shadows. DAngelo, carrying something the generation had forgotten: soul. In 1995, he released his debut album, Brown Sugar, and the world immediately understood a new era of R&B had begun. While the industry chased polish and perfection, DAngelo returned to what was real: live instruments, raw breath, and pure spirit. Brown Sugar wasn't just music, it was a declaration. It stunned the nation. Critics hailed DAngelo as the new messiah of soul, but that was only the beginning. In 2000, DAngelo entered Electric Lady Studios, the temple Jimi Hendrix built, alongside a group of Black geniuses who called themselves the Soulquarians: Questlove, J Dilla, Erykah Badu, Common, Q-Tip. They weren't just recording music, they were summoning the ghosts of history. The result was Voodoo, an album that wasn't merely sound, but a ritual. It was classic, yet modern, sacred, yet sensual, a near-religious experience. Then came Untitled, How Does It Feel? A single shot, one take. DAngelo stripped off his shirt before the camera, singing as if tearing his soul open before the world. When the video aired, the world exploded. Women screamed, men froze. MTV couldn't stop replaying it. That video made him a global sex symbol, something he never wanted. The world obsessed over the body, the eyes, the voice. But the man behind it all began to disappear. Haunted by his own image, DAngelo withdrew from the spotlight. 14 years later, in 2014, he returned with Black Messiah, an album that was more than music, it was a political and spiritual statement. As America trembled from Ferguson, Eric Garner, and the rise of Black Lives Matter, DAngelo rushed the release, saying, "We can't stay silent anymore." Black Messiah became a meeting of heaven and the streets gospel, and funk rock prayer and protest. From Brown Sugar to Black Messiah, DAngelo didn't just make music, he healed souls. He broke the walls between R&B and gospel hip-hop and soul light and darkness. But long before the world discovered DAngelo, there was one woman who had already seen the genius inside a poor black boy. The love between Angie Stone and DAngelo. When two neo-soul spirits collided and caught fire. In the early 1990s, Angie Stone was already a veteran of the music scene. She had been a pioneering female rapper with the group The Sequence. She wrote songs drifted through studios in Atlanta with a heart toughened by experience. DAngelo, meanwhile, was just a 19-year-old from Richmond, Virginia, shy but with eyes that lit up whenever he heard Marvin Gaye or Curtis Mayfield. One day they met during a demo session at EMI. The young man with messy curls and an old Fender guitar was writing a song called Brown Sugar. He wasn't like anyone I'd ever met, Angie later recalled. There was something in his eyes, fragile and proud at the same time. They started talking about soul music, about God, about loneliness. And from that day on, they were never apart. In a small apartment in Atlanta, they wrote songs and played music late into the night. Angie helped DAngelo refine his lyrics, adjust the rhythm, and taught him how to pour real emotion into every note. When Brown Sugar was released in 1995, the world fell in love with DAngelo's voice, seductive, sweet, and full of fire. But few knew that behind those hits was the hand and the heart of Angie Stone. She was not just a lover, but a mentor and spiritual guide. In an interview years later, she said, "We were together for 4 years. When you live with someone, you slowly become them. We became one in music and in spirit." They had a son, Michael Archer Jr., the child of two musical bloodlines, two souls. But just as fame began to shine on DAngelo, cracks quietly began to appear. By 1998, DAngelo had become a Star Tour's fame pressure, thousands of screaming fans. And Angie, the woman who had guided him through his anonymous days, suddenly became the shadow. She was now a mother, a songwriter, and someone trying to hold their love together in the storm of fame. As Voodoo neared release, DAngelo began to change. He drank more, spoke less, avoided the media. Angie tried to save their relationship, but the bond had already torn. They argued through tears, then fell into silence. At last, she packed her things, took their son, and left their apartment in Virginia, without looking back. After Angie Stone walked out of his life, DAngelo lost direction, drowning in alcohol, loneliness, and guilt. She had helped him find his voice, and she was there to see him fall from the heaven she'd helped him build. That love, as Angie once said, never really ended. Because it wasn't just between two people. It was a destined meeting of two neo-soul spirits who burned brightly for a moment, then vanished together in the fire of the very music they created. The fallen genius and the lost years. After the Voodoo tour ended in 2001, DAngelo almost completely disappeared from public view. According to Questlove's memoir, Mo Meta Blues 2013, that tour destroyed him. Every night fans would scream, "Take it off," instead of listening to the music. DAngelo felt like he had been turned into a product, not an artist. In a 2012 interview with GQ, DAngelo confirmed it. The untitled, "How Does It Feel?" video made people see me as a sex symbol. I didn't know how to deal with it. I felt trapped, so I disappeared. When the final tour wrapped, DAngelo vanished. No interviews, no press, no farewell. He left New York and returned to a small house in Richmond, Virginia, the same place that had raised him on church music. He cut off contact with most of his friends in the industry, including Questlove. Former manager Alan Leeds, who had worked with Prince, told Rolling Stone he was living in isolation. No phone, no visitors. We knew he was drinking heavily and drifting away from music. Music, once his refuge, had become a curse. Questlove, his close friend and musical soulmate, said he wasn't addicted to cocaine. He was addicted to emptiness. The applause the magazine covers, all of it, made him sick of himself. Then came 2005, a year of turmoil. On January 12, 2005, DAngelo was arrested in Richmond for possession of cocaine and marijuana. His mugshot, tired eyes, scruffy beard shocked the public. The Richmond Times-Dispatch ran the headline, "Neo-soul star arrested on drug charges." But fate wasn't done with him yet. Less than 9 months later, in September 2005, DAngelo was in a serious car accident. Driving a Hummer H2 while intoxicated, he lost control and crashed into a concrete barrier on Elwood Avenue in Richmond. Police reports stated the vehicle was heavily damaged in the front, and DAngelo survived only because he was wearing his seatbelt. He suffered broken ribs and facial injuries and was hospitalized for treatment. After recovering, DAngelo voluntarily checked into a rehab center in Powhatan, Virginia for alcohol and substance treatment. Questlove recalled in GQ, "That was the worst time. He wouldn't talk, wouldn't sing, wouldn't play. He just sat there sometimes crying when Stevie Wonder came on." Angie Stone, his former partner and the mother of his son, confirmed to The Guardian in 2014, "I visited him during that time. He was different. Thin, quiet, not the man I used to know. I asked if he still felt music in his heart. He just cried. I knew he was still in there, just lost for too long." According to Questlove, from 2006 to 2009, DAngelo slowly regained his health but wasn't ready to return to music. He had to learn to trust himself again. He read the Bible, worked out, played piano, and slowly found faith again. In 2007, Alan Leeds visited him and urged him to get back into the studio. Leeds told Spin magazine, he said to me, "I don't want to die like Marvin Gaye or Michael. I just want to live. I just don't know how yet." For nearly a decade, DAngelo lived quietly, occasionally working with Questlove and James Poyser from the Soulquarians. Questlove said, "Sometimes he'd gain 60 pounds, sometimes he'd lose it all, but the music never left him." By late 2010, he suddenly reached out to Questlove and appeared at Electric Lady Studios in New York, the same place where Voodoo was born. Questlove remembered the moment in GQ. Nobody knew he was coming. He just sat down at the piano and said, "Turn the tape on." He played for 4 hours straight. We knew DAngelo was back. That moment marked the beginning of Black Messiah 2014, his resurrection after more than a decade of darkness. But after Black Messiah, DAngelo disappeared again, as if he had stepped out of the shadows, only to return to them. The album was hailed by critics as a miracle. Yet after the applause faded, he chose silence. No social media, no major tour, no acceptance speeches. Just a soul retreating back into the quiet. And somehow, it seemed fate would never let him rest. The flame extinguished. The death of Angie Stone. According to People magazine, the last time DAngelo and Angie Stone saw each other was in late 2024 backstage at a charity concert in Atlanta. They talked for about 10 minutes about their son, about music, about the old days. No one knew that would be the final time the two neo-soul spirits would ever meet. The fatal night in Alabama. On March 1st, 2025, Angie performed at a small theater in Mobile, Alabama. It wasn't a big show, just a few hundred fans who had followed her since Mahogany Soul. Around 3 a.m., she and 8 others left the venue. It was drizzling outside. The silver Mercedes-Benz Sprinter turned onto Interstate 65. Angie sat in the middle row by the window. According to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, as the van left the city, she sent a text to her son Michael DeAngelo Archer Jr., the only child she shared with DAngelo. "Happy birthday, baby. I'm on my way home." A short message. And her last. At around 4:25 a.m., the van skidded on the wet road and rolled onto its side. Before anyone inside could react, an 18-wheeler came barreling toward them from behind. The sound of metal colliding roared like thunder. The truck hit the van's right side, right where Angie was sitting. Of the 9 people in the van, 8 survived. Only she didn't. Alabama State Police confirmed to AP News victim Angie Stone was pronounced dead at the scene. the music world fell silent. But just days later, her family filed a lawsuit and cracks began to appear in the story. According to court documents released by AJC, Angie was still alive after the van first overturned. She tried to crawl out but was struck by the truck while attempting to escape. The lawsuit claimed that the truck driver Jared Wilkinson was wearing headphones and not paying attention to the road. The truck's automatic braking and collision avoidance systems had failed to activate properly. Daimler Truck North America. The manufacturer was named in the suit. The family's attorney stated, if the system had worked as designed, the second impact wouldn't have happened. Angie Stone could have lived. That quote spread across thousands of social media posts. But a week later, the court temporarily sealed the case to allow for additional evidence. Some data from the crash scene, especially the van's dash camera footage, was reported as completely damaged. The family's lawyer said bluntly, "There's no way every camera failed at once. Someone erased the data." From that moment, the tragedy began to look less like an accident and more like a mystery. A week before her death. The Prophecy on livestream. On February 23, 2025, just a week before her death, Angie went live on Instagram. In the 17-minute video, she spoke about her legal battle with Universal Music Group. "I should have been retired 20 years ago. They took all my royalties. But I'm not staying quiet anymore. If something happens to me, at least people will know why." That video, later referenced by Billboard and People magazine, became one of the most chilling moments of her career. Angie accused the record labels of stealing royalties, twisting contracts, and blacklisting her. 7 days later, Angie was gone, and the video vanished from her account. Her funeral took place in Atlanta. No cameras, no press, only family, friends, and a few close colleagues. In one corner of the church, DAngelo was absent. According to People magazine, he was so devastated he couldn't attend the funeral. A close friend shared, "He locked himself in his room for 3 days. No talking, no playing, no eating. He just sat there silent, like part of his soul had died with her." Another friend musician, Pino Palladino, told Rolling Stone, "I think she was the last person keeping him connected to the world." And then just 7 months later, the world would hear another devastating headline. One final cut to the hearts of everyone who still believed in soul. The final 24 hours of DAngelo, the truth revealed. By the summer of 2024, those close to DAngelo began to sense something was wrong. He had lost a frightening amount of weight. His once thunderous voice from Voodoo had turned hoarse and tired. When friends asked, he simply said, "I'm just tired." No one realized that tired had taken the form of a monster pancreatic cancer. According to his former manager, Alan Leeds, DAngelo was diagnosed in late 2023 after months of stomach pain and unexplained weight loss. Further tests delivered the blow: stage 2 pancreatic cancer, one of the deadliest cancers, rarely caught early and rarely forgiving. He told no one beyond his family. No press statements, no social media posts. Only a handful of people knew, and all of them kept silent. One close friend recalled, "He didn't want pity. DAngelo wanted to be remembered as an artist, not a patient." In January 2024, he began chemotherapy. The grueling treatments left his body weak and fragile. Questlove, his lifelong musical brother, told Rolling Stone, "I asked him if he was scared. He said, 'I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of not making music anymore.'" Family, his final sanctuary. Beyond his eldest son, Michael Jr., with Angie Stone, DAngelo had 2 more children, Imani, his only daughter, and Morocco, his youngest son. He rarely spoke about them publicly, but guarded them fiercely. In his final years, it was Imani who stayed closest to him. "My father didn't talk much anymore," she said, "but every time I held his hand, he'd tap a rhythm like he was still making music." The final months. When the body faded, but the soul still burned. By June 2025, his condition worsened. The cancer had spread to his liver. Doctors advised hospice care. DAngelo refused. He still wanted to record, even if only for minutes a day. Questlove remembered, "I visited him in July. He was so weak, but he insisted on sitting at the piano. He played a few chords from Untitled. I asked, 'What do you think comes after death?' DAngelo smiled and said, 'Music, only music.'" That was the last time they met. In early October, DAngelo was moved to a hospice facility on the outskirts of Richmond. On October 14, 2025 at 9:12 a.m., DAngelo's heart stopped. Imani was the only one by his side. The press release went out a few hours later. After a long and courageous battle with cancer, DAngelo, the son of Richmond, the pioneer of neo-soul, passed away peacefully. The entire music world fell silent. Questlove posted on X Heaven couldn't wait. Lauryn Hill wrote, "He didn't just save R&B, he saved our souls." Imani Archer's final revelation. Imani Archer was not only the daughter of a neo-soul icon, she witnessed her father's final journey in a way the public never saw. After DAngelo passed away on October 14, 2025 from pancreatic cancer, Imani posted a deeply emotional letter on Instagram, revealing something of the pain, love, and promises he left behind. "Dear Daddy." There are no words to describe this immeasurable loss, she wrote. "I'm in absolute disbelief and shock. You were my biggest hype man, my protector, my biggest musical inspiration, the kindest and most selfless man, and the best father anyone could have ever had." In those lines, there was not only a farewell, but gratitude, a declaration of father-daughter love, and a musical legacy that cannot be erased. Imani said that even in his final days, DAngelo was still watching over her, still protecting her from anything that would scare or hurt her. She wrote, "Till the very end, you made sure to protect me from anything that would scare or hurt me." That reveals a rarely seen side of the star, the father, the teacher, the guardian, not only the performer before the crowd. She also recalled simple moments that became permanent. They played music together, they talked about favorite foods, they shared quiet spaces filled with sound. "For you to show me new music, play piano, with me to our favorite songs, or to go back and forward about our favorite go-to meals," she wrote. These memories are now a legacy, not under stage lights, but in the sounds and breath of everyday life. In another post, Imani shared a photo of the two of them together. DAngelo strumming a guitar, she smiling beside him with 3 hearts below, like mended fragments. Accompanying it were the words, "You're one of a kind soul, and I'm so grateful you chose me to be your daughter." Imani's conclusion carried both a promise and a loss. "I'm not sure how I'll be able to live on without you, but I'll never forget all of your advice and things you've told me on how to get through this life. Everything I do will always be for you. I'm gonna miss you and hearing your voice every single day. I'll always be your baby girl. Cancer." It was not only a goodbye, but a declaration of war against illness, against loss, against the silence the artist had once chosen. Imani also confirmed that her father had been hospitalized for months and in hospice for 2 weeks before he died. His decision to keep it private from the public, in other words, to choose a quiet passing, made his daughter's words all the heavier. But Imani's revelation was not only an account of death, it was a powerful statement about a living legacy. Imani Archer is not only DAngelo's daughter, she is the one holding the last light-turning loss into the next song. She is saying that music may die or disappear, but the soul of music through words and promises will live on. The funeral was held in Richmond, without bright lights closed to all but family, close friends, and a few very close colleagues. There was no media in accordance with DAngelo's wishes. He had long sought a life in dimmer light. The family urged fans and the press, "Please respect our privacy." But after the farewells, after millions of streams on Spotify, a quiet question rose. What did he leave behind for his loved ones? For music for the world? DAngelo's assets and legacy. What remains? After a genius, assets what the world can see. According to figures from Finance Monthly and the Economic Times at the time of his death, DAngelo's net worth was estimated at around $1 million USD, a surprisingly modest figure for an artist who sold millions of records and won 2 Grammys. But to those who understood him, it made perfect sense. DAngelo was never a man of money. He disliked glitzy stages, rarely took endorsements, and was known for declining tours even when promoters offered triple pay. "My music isn't for sale," he said in a 2015 interview, "it's how I survive." Most of his assets lay in music rights, with streaming revenue continuing to flow from every play, of Brown Sugar Voodoo and Black Messiah. Songs from untitled How Does It Feel to Really Love continued to be streamed millions of times each month after his passing. The true value was not in a bank account, but in the master tapes he held onto all his life. The reels recorded at Electric Lady Studios, which he called the Sanctuary of the Soul. With no public will, DAngelo's estate was distributed under Virginia law. His 3 children, Michael Archer Jr., with Angie Stone, Imani Archer, and Morocco Archer, became the legal heirs. Michael, the eldest, is a rapper performing as Suavo Twain. Imani, his only daughter, wrote the moving letter, "Everything I do will always be for you." Morocco, the youngest, continues to be protected by the family and kept out of the public eye. They inherited not only assets, but the responsibility to protect the legacy of their father, the artist, the icon. A lawyer close to the family told People magazine DAngelo always told his children that the greatest asset he was leaving them was the music. Money can be lost, but the right to own your sound cannot. Currently, all publishing masters and unreleased recordings have been placed under an estate management entity run by the family. Some internal sources suggest there are at least 3 demos recorded between 2023 and 2024 that may be released later as his final farewell to the world. Legacy, what no one can measure. If assets are what the world can measure, DAngelo's legacy is what can only be felt by the heart. He did not leave lavish mansions or multi-million-dollar companies. He left a musical revolution. Before DAngelo, 1990s R&B had grown industrial, glossy, formulaic. After DAngelo, everything changed. Brown Sugar, 1995, brought back the deep bass, the sharp snare, the living breath of 1970s soul. Then came Voodoo 2000, recorded with the Soulquarians Questlove J. Dilla, Erykah Badu. A new era opened with funk, jazz, and gospel, woven together a sound carved by hand rather than manufactured by machines. Voodoo was not just an album, it was a ritual, a spiritual experience. And then 14 years later, Black Messiah 2014 appeared at the height of Black Lives Matter. DAngelo released it early with a single message: "We cannot be silent." The album became a symbol, a call for unity, pride, and resistance for Black voices in contemporary music. From Maxwell and Alicia Keys to Frank Ocean and Anderson .Paak and HER artists have named DAngelo as the one who made them dare to be honest in their music. Questlove once said, "If Prince is the lightning, DAngelo is the thunder. He doesn't flash, he echoes." And truly, his music still echoes. After his death, streams rose by more than 1,200%, and Voodoo and Black Messiah returned to the Billboard charts. Labels scrambled for vinyl reissues. More importantly, young listeners born after the Voodoo era began rediscovering him as if they had found a saint in the musical archives. At the private service in Richmond, Imani Archer said, "My father didn't leave a castle. He left a lamp. Our job is to keep it burning." And she kept that promise. In the months that followed, Imani and Michael Jr. coordinated a remastered reissue of Brown Sugar, donating proceeds to pancreatic cancer research. They wanted to turn loss into meaningful action, just as their father had used music to heal. When a person dies, the music lives now. DAngelo's wealth is not only in legal documents, but in every lyric, every piano, solo, every bass line that makes the world pause and listen. He is gone, but what he left behind is growing through his daughter's voice, through reissued recordings, through each person who finds themselves in his music. Some assets fade over time, but some legacies like DAngelo's will go on echoing in every quiet night, in every heart that has truly loved music. If you loved and mourned the musical genius DAngelo, leave a word in the comments.
All data, analysis, and commentary in this video are presented based on information available at the time of production. The content is subject to change over time and should not be considered a definitive forecast. There is still so much more to explore: stories of resilience, legacy, and truth. Feel free to dive into some of our top recommended videos now appearing on your screen.